It feels so nice to get these books off of my shelf. Okay, so I have kind of a smaller unhaul to do today. It's nothing big or major at all, but it is really nice to get these books off of my shelf, especially since I have read all of these books and decided to get rid of them. Also, I will be selling a lot of these books, so if you are interested in any of them, you can go over to Pango Books. It's a secondhand book selling app, and I have been using it for the past couple of weeks, and I really, really like it. So if you're interested in any of these books or any other books that I might have, then definitely go ahead and check that out. Also, before we start this video, I want to talk to you a little bit about Ana Luisa. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about the jewelry brand Ana Luisa. They are a sustainable jewelry brand that ships worldwide, and they make beautiful classic jewelry that will suit any style. These pieces are a great gift for yourself or for a loved one, especially with Mother's Day coming up very soon. And there's actually a sale going on for Mother's Day that is buy one get one 40% off, so you can get something for yourself and your mom or a beloved parent. If you check in my description down below, there will be a link to the sale using my very specific link just for my channel viewers. So let's talk about some of the things that I got. I absolutely love the packaging for Ana Luisa. They come in these cute little reusable packages. They are so cute, and I'm actually wearing two of the pieces that I picked out for myself. And this first one is the Hannah engraved necklace. This was actually created in collaboration with Hannah from A Clockwork Reads, and back when she announced this necklace, I knew that I had to get it for myself, and it is so beautiful. I am absolutely in love with it. And then I also picked out these really beautiful earrings, and these are in the Rocks Mini style, and they're like super trendy at the moment. I keep seeing everybody wearing these really cool oblong hoop earrings, and I think that they're so beautiful. And then for my mom, as a Mother's Day gift, I ended up picking up this beautiful necklace that has sort of like an arrow kind of pointing down, and it's absolutely gorgeous, very classic and minimalist. And this necklace is called the Vita necklace, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It definitely fits my mom's style. She's not really into like these big flashy necklaces, so I think that this will be perfect for her. And this Mother's Day sale is super convenient because I know for me, I was definitely having trouble figuring out what I was going to get my mom for Mother's Day, and this necklace is absolutely perfect and is going to make it so special. Once again, if you are interested in checking out Ana Luisa, I'm going to have a very special link in my description, and you can use it for the Mother's Day buy one get one 40% off sale. I am absolutely in love with the pieces that I chose, and I'm so excited that they came from such an awesome and sustainable brand like Ana Luisa. So I'm in love. They're definitely going to be pieces that I wear all the time. Alright, so let's get right on into this unhaul. We're going to start off with this first book, and that is Days of Distraction by Alexandra Chang. I just recently read this book back in March, and I ended up giving it about 2 stars. If you want to hear more about my thoughts about this specific book, I have a reading vlog where I read a couple of books written by authors who are named Alexandra, which is also my name. And so it was a really fun reading vlog, and I was glad that I picked this up, and I was glad that I had it on hand, but it just didn't live up to any of my expectations. It's kind of in that genre of literary fiction novels that are targeted towards women in their 20s. Similarly to Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan, or Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney, or even Luster by Raven Leilani. Very similar to all those kind of books, but I didn't feel like the execution was very well done. It seemed like this author had so many different ideas and wanted to execute them all at the same time, but they just didn't all work very well in the flow of the book. And I also found the main character to be the most boring and one-dimensional character in the entire book. There were actually some side characters that I found way more interesting and I enjoyed a lot more than the main character. So while this wasn't like the worst book that I've ever read, I just don't want to hold on to it anymore, and it can definitely make room for other books. And now I can make room for other books that I love and want to read so much more. The next book is another one that wasn't like the worst book ever, but it's definitely not one that I could ever see myself reaching for again, and that is Black Buck by Matteo Ascaripour. And I didn't hate this book by any means. I think I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I ended up listening to the audiobook for this one, and while there were parts that I did enjoy, overall it just kind of fell a little flat for me. It's this really interesting take on capitalism and hustle culture, specifically through a millennial lens, and it is supposed to be a bit of a satire on all of that. And before I read this book, I did watch the documentary for WeWork, and I thought that that was really interesting, so I thought that I would like this book a little bit more than I did, but there were just like some elements that didn't really work for me, and it's specifically the ending that I felt was pretty weak. It just seemed to wrap up really quickly, especially in comparison to how the rest of the book was paced. It just felt like it was done in an instant and everything was revealed in like 2 pages, and it just didn't feel very satisfying. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to get rid of Black Buck. The next one was just like the worst reading experience ever, and that was Fable by Adrienne Young. I think I gave this like 1 or 2 stars. I might not have even rated it at all because I did technically DNF it. I think I got about 60 to 70% of the way through this book and nothing was happening. I felt like we were continually in like the first third of the book, or what should have been the first third of the book, but it just kept dragging on, and then I got past the middle section and I was like, wait a second. Nothing has happened. Like, no inciting incident has happened yet. I think that there were some like parts of the story where I think the writer thought that that was an inciting incident or thought that that was pushing forward the plot, but it just wasn't. And I also felt like the romance was really shoehorned into this book. It really didn't need to have a romance, or if it was going to have a romance, it needed one that was much better written. This one just felt like it was coming out of nowhere. I could not understand why these 2 characters even cared about each other. It really expects you to jump into this book and it automatically believe that these 2 characters care about each other without having really developed any of these feelings between these 2 characters. It just didn't work for me overall. There wasn't really any redeeming quality about this book, or else I would have finished it. It just didn't work for me, unfortunately. It is a bummer though, because this cover is absolutely gorgeous. Also, this isn't a sticker. That's such a bummer. I just realized that it's not a sticker. What the heck, Reese? Reese Witherspoon, you will be hearing from my lawyer. The next book was such a bummer because I've had it for years and I've always wanted to read it, and I finally picked it up this year and I was so disappointed, and that is Winter Song by S.J. Jones. So many things went wrong with this book. It's just so hard to list them all. I was really annoyed by the main character, unfortunately. It definitely had that like early to mid 2000s, maybe even late 2000s sort of main character energy, where she was just so caught up on how like ugly or unattractive she was, how nobody would ever want her, but then somehow this like Goblin King wants her so bad. I'm going to have to disagree with Renee Attier on the back. She says spellbinding and sexy. Those are definitely not 2 words that I would use to describe this book. Winter Song is a feast for all the senses. I didn't want this beautifully written book to end. I don't know about that. I will say that it was beautifully written. It has this really interesting writing style that is very reminiscent of like old school fairy tales, but it couldn't save the content of the book. I just didn't really enjoy it. This is another case of the main character being annoying or boring, and I was much more interested in the side characters. I think in my review or one of my updates, I was like, I wish that this book was written about the sister, because I much preferred the sister. I thought she was so much more interesting. And the main character was just constantly complaining, constantly whining, constantly saying, woe is me, I'm so ugly. And it's annoying at sometimes. It just grates on you. And I don't want to read a book that is like 300, 400 pages of a main character just like talking about how ugly she is. And don't get me wrong, I love an ugly main character. I've read so many books where the main character is canonically unattractive, but they don't like go about the entire book just talking about how ugly and unattractive they are. They're too busy being badasses. Like, I wanted her to be more of a badass. I wanted her to take more risks, you know, do more things, be more of an active protagonist. and she just wasn't. So yeah, that one has to go. And then the next book was also part of my Alexandra reading vlog, and that is unfortunately Lore by Alexandra Bracken. I was truly disappointed by how bored I was the entire time I was reading this. I ended up DNFing it somewhere in like the 30% mark, and a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I trust were like, just DNF it, it does not get better, you're not gonna like it. So I was like, okay, I feel pretty good about DNFing this book, but it really did disappoint me because I went into it having pretty high expectations. I know that Alexandra Bracken is a pretty beloved YA author. I've never read anything from her before, so this was my first foray into her writing, and I unfortunately just was not impressed. This one had like one of the strongest first chapters that I've read in a while, and while the first chapter was amazing, it was fantastic and it totally sucked me in, it ended up just getting worse and worse and worse as the chapters progressed. I just found this book really boring, overly convoluted. I could not get myself to care about any of these characters, and I definitely don't regret DNFing this. So I'm sure that it'll find a much better home. I'm sure there'll be somebody who loves Alexandra Bracken or is looking for a Greek mythology, YA, contemporary fantasy, but unfortunately this book just was not for me. Okay, so now we're kind of getting into some of like the more contentious books, I guess. Like those first 6 books, I'm like, well, they're pretty, you know, hit or miss for a lot of people, but these 3 are ones that I have been holding on to for a while and kind of feel like I just need to let them go at this point. The first one is unfortunately the collector's edition of Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Reason number 1 is that it's cluttering up my space. It's taking up space that another book could use, and I just don't need that in my life. B, I've kind of fallen out of love with Leigh Bardugo for multiple reasons, and I don't want to get into every reason in this video. Just know I'm not like the biggest Leigh Bardugo fan anymore. And that's not to say that I'm like not going to be watching the show or anything, or like I don't love certain characters, but just overall, me and Leigh Bardugo are kind of on the rocks. And to be honest, I don't even really know why I had this book in the first place. Yes, I love Six of Crows. It was one of the books that got me back into reading back like in 2015, I want to say. It kind of reignited my love for YA books and all of that kind of stuff. And I remember I picked it up just like randomly at Barnes & Noble one day, and I had never heard of it before. I actually had mistaken Leigh Bardugo for Laini Taylor. So I thought I was picking up a Laini Taylor book, but I was actually picking up a Leigh Bardugo book. And then when I picked it up and I was reading it, I was like, oh wait, this is Leigh Bardugo. She wrote Shadow and Bone, which I had read like a year before or something like that. Anyway, long story short, I've loved Leigh Bardugo for years, but unfortunately I'm just going to have to give this one away, mainly because I don't even like put it up on my shelves. It's on one of my shelves that is in the corner. You can't even see it. You can't even see it in this video. And it doesn't make sense to have this collector's edition and not display it in any sort of way, and I have no desire to display it. So we're gonna get rid of this one, unfortunately. Okay, so the next 2 books are also by Leigh Bardugo and are part of a series, and that is King of Scars and Rule of Wolves together. I probably won't be selling them together. They'll probably be separate unless you like really want them together. But they're kind of big books. So if you've been watching my videos for like, I think about a year now, you'll know that I really did not like Rule of Wolves. I gave this book a 1 star. I hated it so much. It gave me a literal mental breakdown. I've never cried over a book as much as I did with this book. It was just such a disappointment. There are so many bad things about this book, so many issues, and again, I cannot go into every single issue within these 2 books together in this one video. It would just be way too long. It'd just be a lot of things to discuss, so I can't really get into all of that, but just know I can't stand looking at these books anymore. I was keeping them on my shelves just because, you know, I have my Leigh Bardugo collection. I have like almost all of her books. I think there's only a couple of books that I don't have, and I was just kind of keeping them, I guess, for appearances. Like, I don't even really like this series all that much. Like, as much as I love Nikolai, or I loved Nikolai before this series, this one kind of made me fall out of love with him and fall out of love with a lot of the characters. So really unfortunate. This is one of Leigh Bardugo's weakest series, and that's saying something because Shadow and Bone exists. But yeah, we're just not gonna have these books anymore. I never want to see this book ever again. Never. Get it away from me. Okay, so those were all the books that I am unhauling and that I'm going to be putting up on Pango Books. So I will have a link below for my Pango Books link, and you can check that out. Check out all of the books that I have on my library, and I would love to get them shipped out to you so they can have a forever home. And also don't forget to check out any of the Ana Luisa info that I have in the description box below. Alright, so I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, Storygraph, TikTok. All the links are going to be down below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye! Ooh, I thought it'd be me and you.